You know, there's nothing like the feeling of hitting a soft draw that ends up down the middle of the fairway. You know, the ball that starts out high and down the right center, gently turns over, works its way back to the middle, and then of course rolls out to a really nice distance. It does take some know-how though, and right after this I'm going to show you how. Hey, this is Steve from HitItLonger.com, and if you're new to my channel, I'm on a journey to hit longer, straighter drives, just be longer and straighter in general. And so that if that's you too, then after this video, you might consider subscribing for notification of all my future content. I'd also like to point out that down in the description below, I'm giving away a couple of real cool freebies. I've got a free ebook for lots of tips for hitting your longest drives ever. And I've also got a 30-minute video on how to cure your slice. So grab those. Okay, let's take a look at the drive I just hit in the intro. The animation and the stats will be coming right up here in the corner of the screen. I've got that drive at that was 308 yards, so a nice healthy drive, and it's you can see it's 12 yards left of center. The path was 4 degrees to the right or inside out, and the face was 1.6 open, giving me a little bit of draw spin, or maybe 10 yards or so of draw spin. And overall, it's a perfect drive to start a round of golf, wouldn't it be? To go 308 down the middle on the first tee would be, with a smooth swing, would be really amazing. Would put me in great shape, great frame of mind for the rest of the round. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts of what I just did, so that maybe you can start working a little bit of a draw with your driver too. Okay, so the biggest key to drawing the driver, we've got to understand something called the face-to-path relationship. So I think most people out there, you recognize what your club path is. Your club path can be either, let's say, inside to out, or inside to straight, some people would describe, or a zero path. And slicers might have what would be called an outside-in path. So those 3 different kinds of path. And then we have to have the club face closed to that path just slightly to play a small draw. So let me explain what face to path means. Whatever your path is, you've got to have the face slightly close to it if you're going to tend to hit the ball with a draw. So in this case, again, I'll put the numbers up on the screen. I had a path 4 degrees into out. My face angle was actually 1.6 degrees open. So I drew the ball with an open club face. This is because the face was 2.4 degrees closed relative to the path it was traveling on. So again, it's that face-to-path relationship that we're looking at. For example, you could have an outside-in path of, let's say, 1 degree and a 2 degree closed club face, and you could still draw the ball. You might draw it in a little bit of a pull into the left side of the fairway, but nevertheless you can draw the ball with an outside-in path, and you can fade or slice the ball from an inside path as well. So just because you have your path, what you think you need it to be to hit a draw, doesn't mean that you're going to do it. You got to have the face cooperating in line with the path as well. So again, slightly closed face relative to the path, not to the target line necessarily. Now, a good ratio, what we found is that a 2-to-1 ratio of face to path, or path to face, whichever, is going to make the ball finish in the center of the fairway. So for example, we'll look at my drive I just hit again, 4 degree path. If I had had a 2 degree open club face, and this is given a centered hit, a 2 degree open club face would have put me in the center of the fairway, very close. In this case, I was a little bit more close to that, 1.6, so that made the ball just slightly overhook into the left center instead of the center. So we're splitting hairs, but you can see the point, a 2-to-1 ratio. So for example, if my path was 2 into out, I would need a 1 degree open face. If my path is 8 degrees into out, I would need a 4 degree open club face to make the ball curve back to the left and hit the center of the fairway. 4 degree open club face, that sounds really bad, but remember that the club is still coming and side swiping into out an extra 4 degrees, giving you the curve back to the left. So it's face to path relationship. Now let's take a look at some of the things we're going to need to make your swing this way and hit the draw. Okay, so there's a couple approaches you can take to hit the draw by changing your stance. You could hit the draw off of a square stance like this, and then just making your swing come more from the inside. Or if you're just used to swinging straight, instead of dropping to the inside extra and being inside out relative to your feet, you could also turn your feet a little bit to the right, but swing more straight. So there's 2 approaches, depends on what you're used to doing with your normal swing and what kind of draw you're looking for. Now I'll tell you, I'll favor the more square stance one. And the reason is this. You see, as I make an adjustment for the inside out path, by over rotating my hips and shoulders out to the right just a little bit, what I'm going to do is set myself up to come not just into out, but also more shallow into the ball with a low point slightly farther back. That's going to give me more of an upstrike on it. So just the little adjustment in my body is going to set me up for an upstrike to play a higher draw, get the extra yards from that angle of attack being way upwards like we've talked about in some of the other videos. So that's why I'm able to produce a lot of distance for a relatively low amount of speed. You see in the example we just used, I was at 308 miles an hour, but under 108, 308 yards, but only less than 108 miles per hour, which is really distance efficient. Okay, so we've talked about how we can get the path to the inside by either turning the feet to the right or turning the shoulders and hips to help me swing more inside out. But really the biggest thing we have to account for is the club face. You got to remember that on a driver, the club face is about 85% of the influence on where the ball is going to go. So the face really is key here. The path's only 15% given a dead center hit. So the path is really just setting the table, but the club face, getting it to the right angle, is really the most important and the most challenging part as well. One thing that I believe helps a lot is how early I'm releasing the club. You see, once I step over to my left side, I am throwing the club immediately. I am trying to get rid of all my lag. I'm not trying to hold lag even for a split second. That would be completely counterproductive to hitting this shot. We want to be really early and really free with the release of the club head so that the face can come around and square up on time and not be left open. Because if you're inside out already with the path and you leave the club face either square to that path or open to that path, well, now you're deep into the trees on the right. So we really have to work on releasing this thing free, fully, and early. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to adjust to get the club face slightly close to the path, it's going to be, I've called it an emergency parachute move before, but we are going to allow the toe to slightly roll over the heel. I want to show you what I'm doing this way. Okay, so this is the third motion. I've talked about 2 other wrist motions that we would predominantly like to use, which is the flap and the crossover. But we have a little bit of this flip move in there, so that can make sure that, see, the toe can get just a little bit closed as you're coming from the inside and get that draw spin going. So it's okay to let this hand turn. You see, I'll do it with two hands now. See how I'm turning the shaft in place? It's kind of like the same muscles you'd use to fine-tune a radio dial. So if I'm tuning out the static, you see I'll just be making these really fine little movements with my wrist and forearm, and that's all we're doing here. And we are gonna let the hands turn over this way just a little bit more to hit the draw. Okay, so let me see if I can hit another one. I'm looking for a nice high draw down the right center that hooks back to the middle. I'm going to go for a little bit more distance this time. Another thing I'm going to do to help keep the path on the inside a little bit is I'm not going to quite rotate my chest open as much or as freely. I'm going to feel like I keep my left shoulder in there just a little bit longer rather than turning as much. Just going to feel like I keep my back to the target just a smidge longer to keep that club dropping to the inside. Hey, I hope some of those ideas resonate with you. You'll be able to take them to the range, work on them a little bit, and start more easily being able to hit a draw, especially a nice high draw that gets a little extra distance down the fairway. Thanks again to Golf Development Center in Moore Park, California. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Steve, and I will see you further down the fairway.